Yes, ladies and gentlemen, episode 11 of Pokemon Horizon is titled The Arboliva's Forest just dropped, and our heroes continue to the forest where Brassius says that he saw the Shiny Rayquaza. However, when they come across the forest, it is desolated. What happened here? Let's find out. This episode begins with Liko trying to confirm something. Last episode, she saw a Nidothing costume on the ship. She goes to Dot's room to confirm that Dot is Nidothing. Super fan! Yep, a super fan. That's why she has the costume. Molly's talking to her mom on her phone, who's worried about her before she hangs up. She's looking at an article on her phone about the forest that Liko and Roy are planning to investigate tomorrow to find out more about Rayquaza, and thinks that maybe she should be going along too. Next day, Nemona leads them to the forest that Brassius was talking about. However, as seen in Molly's article, the forest was recently burnt down by a wildfire due to lightning. However, Nemona says that there's more greenery deeper in the forest, and before she leaves, she tells Roy that she wants to battle him next time they meet. Liko and Roy see what Nemona was talking about when they go deeper into the forest, and Roy says that he wants to scout the forest around since he's used to being in them, and leaves, setting a giant tree that's ahead of them as the point to meet if any of them ever get lost. Molly and Liko sit down there and have a chat. This episode has a focus on the perspective of parents and children. For example, Murdoch worries about what the kids want to eat and constantly texts them. However, the kids find that kinda annoying because he's constantly asking them stuff. Similarly, we learn here that Molly comes from a line of doctor, and her family wanted her to continue that lineage. And yes, while she did enjoy the work, it isn't what she wanted to do. Liko realizes, and we get a flashback that shows us that this has been set up for a while, that she doesn't really like going around Pokemon centers. I guess she doesn't want to go back to where it reminds her of her past. She talks about how she was supposed to be a nurse, but ultimately chose not to. Why? We'll find out later in the episode. Molly says that she admires that Liko was able to talk to her father and go on her own adventure. Even though Liko doesn't know what she wants to do in her life right now, she's adventuring and finding out her own path. Sprigatito finds some oranberries around, and Molly tells Liko that she should go collect some oranberries, so Liko does. However, Liko gets lost after she does pick some oranberries, while Roy goes to the biggest tree in the forest. He wants to climb to get a good vantage point, but as he's climbing the giant tree, he notices an ancient Pokeball stuck on the tree, and then the tree begins shaking. Liko also notices this and heads towards the tree to figure out what's going on. As she's heading there, she comes across a dry, Paldean Wooper that looks really ill. She's trying to figure out how to help it when a Cacnea, Hoppip, and Shroomish arrive, knocking down Liko before using Stun Spore to fly away with the Wooper. Liko gives chase as she thinks that they're ganging up on it. Molly's getting impatient waiting around, so she also heads to the big tree, which was the designated point to go to if someone got lost. Chasing the Pokemon, Liko arrives near the giant tree as well and sees that the Pokemon were in fact trying to help it, but she can't communicate to them the fact that she wants to help Paldean Wooper. However, just then, Molly arrives, taking firm charge of the situation and working on Wooper to heal it. Here, we learn why she didn't want to continue to be a Pokemon Center nurse. She always thought about the Pokemon outside of the Pokemon Center that were hurt, the wild Pokemon. That's why she left her old profession. Just then, however, the giant tree there in front begins moving even more, and in fact, they realize quickly that it isn't a giant tree, it's a giant Arboliva. Roy gets thrown off Arboliva, who he was still hanging on to forever there, and it begins attacking them. Roy and Liko want to run, but Molly wants to stay put and help the Wooper, so Liko decides that they need to instead buy some time. Liko has Sprigatito use Quick Attack to get Arboliva's attention. Meanwhile, Fuecoco uses Stomping Tantrum to get it off balance. Then finally, Liko has Sprigatito use Quick Attack to get on top of Arboliva before using Leafish to blind it, and then one more Stomping Tantrum from Fuecoco brings it down. However, even though it went down, it's still not out, and it's even more mad now. Just then though, the banged up Paldean Wooper, who has been bandaged by Molly, arrives and yells at the Arboliva. Then, Molly comes over and says that they were trying to help the Wooper, which seems to calm down Arboliva. A bit later, it makes some distressing noise before lifting up Roy and Liko, showing them how much of the forest got destroyed by the wildfire mentioned earlier. And that is the end of the episode. So this explains the feeling that Liko had in the last episode when she said that she thought that the statue of Arboliva made by Brassius felt sad. The fire happened recently, and that's what it was sad over. However, there's still a few more questions remaining that weren't answered this episode. Why is this Arboliva so big? I'm assuming it's a Titan Pokemon, but we don't really have an answer of that. Why does it have an ancient Pokeball on it? And what's its connection to Rayquaza? All those will probably be answered in future episodes. As for this one though, I really like that this episode was a smaller scale episode to help us give us insight into into Molly and her character. We learn about her past as a nurse, we learn a bit about her family history, and we learn why she chose to go around with the Rising Voltaclers instead of being a Pokemon nurse. Learning all that makes your character way more interesting, and I hope we continue to get smaller scale episodes like this to learn more about the other cast characters. Also, the Nidothing plot will seemingly be a gag, where Liko just can't ever figure out that Dot is in fact a Nidothing. I wonder if she ever will. I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. As mentioned earlier, this episode was themed around the worry of a parent and a child, and this episode reinforces that by having the giant Arboliva be worried about the Wooper, only for the Wooper to reassure it. For a children's cartoon talking about the dynamic of a parent and child is really a fantastic thing for the kids of the younger demographic who are going to be watching this, because it should help them become more empathetic. And I have a feeling that next episode, that'll be reinforced even more. Overall though, for a smaller scale episode, I enjoyed it. What about you guys? What did you guys think of this episode? Let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at PdGaming, and that's it. I will talk to you guys later. Peace.